Welcome to Some Days Today, where we encourage you to live your best life starting today. My name is Bola Adina, and I am the host. I will be joined shortly with my co-host, Mac Adina. He's actually walking in now. And joining us today is a woman that I am excited to get to know more about. Her name is Dr. Issy Idemudia. Hopefully, I'm saying that correctly. And Issy is an enterprise social solutions architect at Accenture with over a decade of experience in building and designing enterprise-wide solutions. Issy really stood out to me because of the book that I saw that she recently wrote, which is the best-selling book Out of Africa and Into the Cloud, where she aims to empower the next generation of female coders. She holds a PhD in technology management from the University of Port Harcourt, Nigeria, master's in information technology, and is a bachelor's degree in computer engineering. She's currently undergoing a second master's at Northeastern University in Boston, and where she's studying enterprise artificial intelligence. Welcome, Issy. That is quite a mouthful. I always get so impressed by folks who have all these computer engineering, computer science degrees. So it's really impressive to sort of chat with you today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. I'm excited to be on your podcast today. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you. So I know I did a bit of a background, but I'm pretty sure I didn't do exactly what you've done any justice. So if you could just give at a high level more about yourself, what you do, and then of course during the course of the interview, I'd love to go back and sort of just revisit and walk through history with you. But just now, if you can just do a summary about what you do.
Okay, so I'm an AWS solutions architect at Accenture. I've been at Accenture for just about 2 years as an associate manager at the moment. And pretty much I design, build, maintain solutions on Amazon Cloud for clients across several verticals. And I love what I do because identify the mess and try to make that mess into a beautiful, sustainable, and scalable solution. So that's what I do on like my day to day. And in addition, I've been teaching girls to code in the last 1 year in Atlanta, Greater Atlanta area, just empowering them. My passion is really to see the next generation of female coders. So before now, I did a bachelor's degree in computer engineering, and then I went for a master's in information technology, and I went ahead and did my PhD in technology management. So really, I like to learn because I feel like learning is so much valuable to people. People could take a lot of other assets from you. They can argue your property, but no one can take away the knowledge you've learned. So that's my philosophy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Awesome. That's great. That's great. So I think you and I have quite a number of things in common. I'm also Nigerian, and I, also have a computer science degree. So I do have a bit of a technology leaning, even though I wouldn't call myself a technologist. I think since completing my computer science degree about 20 years ago, I haven't done as much in that space, but I think it's certainly sort of prepared me for my consulting career, which you and I also share in common, working at Accenture. So yeah, it's always interesting when you meet someone who has a similar background as yourself. So I'm very curious as to how we got here. Were you born in America or in Nigeria?
I was born in Nigeria. I went to college in Nigeria. I got my PhD in Nigeria.
Oh, wow.
What school?
I went to University of Port Harcourt. That's where I did my doctorate, University of Port Harcourt. I examined and investigated critical failure factors for software
failure factors?
Yes, for software projects in Nigeria. there was an alarming rate of failure of software
Mm.
projects. So I examined that. That was my PhD research.
What does that
Okay.
mean, critical failure? I'm just curious. You said there's an alarming rate. So does that mean as people are building softwares
The,
and release them to the market, there are kinks and issues that they discover with the softwares?
yeah, so about 67% of the projects don't ever get into the market. They don't get into completion, so they fail even before it's launched. So I examined these factors, and also the ones that eventually get into the market don't last. You know, software companies are going bankrupt. Everything is just, it wasn't just good statistics. So I looked at those factors with the aim of, you know, getting it to work. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
to work. So
Well,
a few factors that I discovered was, of course, a lot of stakeholder politics was involved, and then the right skill set. Yeah, but it was a lot of people factors, I would say.
mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Interesting. I would love to dive into that some more because, and not now, because I do want to go even further back before we got to your PhD. But I've always been curious as to why India took off so quickly and so dramatically in the space of outsourcing. You know, when it comes to technology, because I felt like we had the same sort of skill set as India. You know, where on the other side of the world, where India is even further removed, but we have highly technical capable people who are savvy with technology. So when America was looking to outsource technology, it was always curious to me as to why Nigeria was not sort of in the race. So I'm curious to see if you have any insight into that, because maybe that explains
Why? So,
yeah.
so the politics within organizations is what is really not making it work. Because you will find out that a software project, the project manager will be someone with a business degree who has never really managed a technology project from start to finish. So the project is already doomed to fail because the structure, the project team is wrong from the set goal. So we'll have the technology people at the down cater in the project team where they can't make any decisions. They can't make cost decisions. So cost estimate goes wrong because the person leading the team doesn't understand what it takes for a full software life cycle to be delivered.
Mhm.
So that's I wouldn't say more than that, but around the stakeholder politics, I would say what's the greatest correlation factor.
Interesting.
Gotcha. Hmm.
So what started this passion for programming to begin with?
So I'll say when I finished high school, when I wanted to be an architect, but like a structural architect.
Mm.
And that was because I had this aunt who was an architect. She was a lecturer at University of Nigeria in Suka. And she was like my favorite, my dad's favorite niece. And he always spoke about her a lot. So she was like our go-to aunt. So I wanted to be an architect, but I didn't quite make the grades that I needed to get into architecture at Nsuka. So my second choice was River State University of Science and Technology, where they accepted me to go into computer engineering. So it wasn't like there was any critical thinking before I chose computer engineering. I didn't just want to do what my other female friends were doing. So like I didn't want to do social sciences, I didn't want to do business, I didn't want to do the things that were common for girls. So I just chose computer engineering.
Got it. Interesting. So let me ask you, this is, and I don't know if we want to jump into this right now, but this is what's burning in my mind because, you talked about doing the research for, what goes wrong, the critical, what do you call it? Critical defects or
Failure.
failures.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I'm wondering, a lot of Nigerians do have the brain power, like we talk about with respect to the comparison between Nigeria and
India.
in India. but a lot of them are abroad using their, their mental powers and their mental resources as opposed to being at home, helping them solve some of the very problems that you identified. So why not go back and help to fix those sorts of things?
So, I mean, helping to fix it doesn't mean that you have to be there presently. You know, you don't have to be present to help to fix it. So we are doing what we can. So like the beginning of the lockdown, I had a data science session with a group called Data Science Nigeria. I think that's the largest group in Africa focused just on data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence. And I taught a 3-day session. So that's also helping, even though I'm not there like physically. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great point. So I'm curious as to how you decided that you didn't want to do what was common, because I think it sounds like there may be something here about the personality type that decides to go against the norm, and I wonder, has this always been you? Because I feel like I kind of have that in me as well. If everybody is doing one thing, I'm like, okay, well, it seems a little crowded. How can I stand out? So has that always been your personality or a characteristic of yours from a very young age?
Yeah, I've always wanted to stand out. I don't like to follow the crowd because I feel where the crowd is, there's maybe a lot of competition there. But if you go around to where the road less traveled, right, there's a fewer people, and I feel that the fewer people are more quality people. You could make strong relationships, strong friendships. I mentioned in my book, the friends I made when I was in college are still like my great good friends today. Some of them running their tech consulting businesses, some in IBM, Microsoft, and all of that. And we've been doing great things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on that, you mentioned, you have friends who are running their own tech companies. Why not start your own?
I feel I'm ready. I don't know if I can run a business. I think I just want to build my career at Accenture for now.
Okay. And so I'm sorry, I know you probably discussed this, and I apologize in advance, but how long have you been at Accenture?
2 years.
Oh, okay, 2 years. And how did you land in Accenture?
So I applied, and I got an offer in 4 days.
While in Nigeria?
No, in the US.
Okay, so you were working here before Accenture?
Right.
Okay. All right. So may I ask what who the previous employer was?
So I was actually in a very small consulting firm, which was mine. I was the managing partner of the IT consulting firm. I ran it for about 3 years before I joined Accenture.
Gotcha.
Cool. Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I do want to explore more of your background. So you've always liked to stand out. You decided you were going to do computer science. Or computer engineering, were you always good in math, which I feel like was a prerequisite, if I remember correctly, like you had to be good in math. But what else did you feel set you up for that path? Yeah.
So I loved maths. I still love maths. For the WIAC, that's the West African examination, I took the maths exam. I took the further maths exam. That's the advanced maths exam. Yeah, just to show how much I loved it. And I had A's. I had A's in those courses. So I love math. I love physics. I love chemistry. And I think that really put me in a strong position to get into computer engineering and to be successful. Well, I'm not saying right now that in order to be successful in coding or computers, you have to love math. I think the passion really to be successful is what makes you successful.
So how did you find? So personally, I was okay in math. I kind of stumbled my way into the technology side, computer science, because back then I didn't have a strong passion for anything. This was 1998 when I started college. I didn't have a strong passion per se. And my dad is like, I don't know, computers seem like they may be important. You may want to study that. So I said, okay, well, ain't nothing else to study. I don't have a passion for anything. I knew for a fact I didn't want to be in the hospitals. I didn't want to be a doctor. I knew I didn't like accounting. I actually went in as a pre-law. I met Mac, my husband, in undergrad. So he was a pre-law. I went in as a pre-law. But before you can go into law school, you have to major in something. So I figured I would just major in one thing and then I'll become an attorney or a lawyer of some sort. Of course, later in my college career, I took one law class. No, I saw the books Mac was carrying around, the massive books, and I said, that's not for me. So for me, really, computer science was something that I stumbled into, and I didn't feel like I thrived in it. Does that make sense? So even though I was looking for something interesting, something different, it was so different because I didn't have any exposure or background into it that I kind of really struggled. So I'm curious, had you been exposed to computer engineering? Like, did you have a sense for it so you knew what to expect and then therefore thrived? Or did you just pick it up as you got into it?
That's a very good question. I would say I also stumbled into it the same way you did. But you see, when I got into my first year of college, I realized that there were no computers, and I was studying computer engineering. And then I knew
Hold up. One second.
Yeah.
So you were studying computer engineering at college, but there were no computers at the college.
In my first year, there were no computers. By my second year, we had one computer for the entire department. So when there was 150 of us in my class, and I said all of this in my book, there was 150 of us in my set, and 150 of us had to use one computer. So we took turns, and it was hard. We took turns. You needed to you write your code down on a sheet of paper, and then you just have your time slot to type in the code, and it better runs. Like, your code needs to run because once your time is up, it's up.
Yeah.
So we put a lot of precision into my coding skills because the code will run on paper first before it goes to the computer. But I felt there was more. I felt I could get more. I felt computers had more to offer. So that's when I started looking for other places. And then I came in contact with an institution called NIIT. It was run by Indians, and it's still run by Indians in Port Harcourt. And I enrolled for Microsoft SQL Server. That was my first course I enrolled in my second year. So I started taking classes at NIT and also at my college. And then when I got to NIT, I saw well over 1,000 computers, and everyone had access. One person to one computer. It was one-to-one. And then that was where my love for computers really began, because I met people who were doing great with computer. The hiring managers were coming there to hire because that was like the hub for the smart technology people or the skilled technology people. And I happened to hang around very smart people who were doing different things. We had people doing Java, PHP, Oracle. So I finished my Microsoft Database Administration, and then I enrolled for Oracle Database Administration. I got certified. So by the time I graduated from college, I was already a Microsoft Database Administrator. I was an Oracle Database Administrator, as well as my computer engineering degree. And within that time frame, so even while I was going to school, my perception about computers was completely different from my classmates. Because while they were lining up to take turns to use that one computer, I had access to one computer myself, and I was doing a lot of that. I started lecturing, they offered me a job. So I was taking weekend classes teaching Microsoft SQL and Oracle SQL as well.
Yeah. Wow. Wow, that's cool. So, what was some of the solutions, especially living in Nigeria? Because I think that is one thing that the world of technology opens up is the ability to resolve a lot of issues that you see in the day-to-day world. So, I do appreciate that experience for the world that it opened up for me. What were some of the issues that you living in Nigeria started to think could be solved through technology and that you were now wanting to attach yourself to?
So I would say payments in the banking sector. I still
Mhm.
don't understand why we don't have like mobile monies and wallets like here how we have Cash Apps and PayPal still doesn't function in Nigeria. But I need to build local PayPal. I know we have the skill set and capacity to do it. In order to do it, you need to get a CBN monetary license, and when you go to CBN, it becomes almost complicated because it's not political, and the licensing fees and all of those kind of things. But payments is something that I was really concerned about, and I'm still concerned about. I know we've had very few successes. We now have Flutterwave that's run by a friend of mine, and then the Diamond Bank CEO after the merger. I know he started something around wallets, but just to be able to reach the unbanked because
Mm.
they can go to the bank. Right.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. So, are we jumping into the book, or are we still background?
Yeah, yeah. So now, I mean, I'm just curious as to then from there. So once you were done, you thrived, you got your degree, you started teaching, and then what happened after that? How did you find your way either into the venture space, which I saw on your resume, and then of course eventually to America?
yeah, yeah. So after that, I worked for the Nigerian government for a bit. I managed the database of all Nigerian teachers. Funny enough, there's actually an Oracle database of all
Nigerian teachers?
registered Nigerian teachers. So you have,
And what is that used for? What's the purpose of that?
yeah, so it's regulatory to make sure that
Mm.
what you teach, you have a proper background check and you're teaching with the right certificates. Then they have their own internal licensing. So like how the doctors get their medical license, you actually get a teacher's license before you can.
Gotcha.
So I just managed the database for that for a while. And while I was doing that, um, someone introduced me to the CEO of Venture Garden Group,
Hmm.
and so they needed someone to manage their government relations. So I was actually because I had the experience with government, and they were doing quite a bit in the government space. They had solutions that they were selling to the government. So solutions in healthcare, aviation, financial services. So I managed their relationship with the Nigerian government. That was what I did for Venture Garden Group. It was after Venture Garden Group that I moved to the US.
Gotcha. How was that experience? Because what I'll, you mentioned the politics within CBN, and then of course having, working doing government relations. I can't imagine that it was a walk in the park. Mainly because my dad, who has been a chemist here all of his career, left to go start a pharmaceutical plant in
Really?
Nigeria.
That's
Making medicine and all of that, something that he's very passionate about. This was 10 years ago. He is still waiting for various licenses that these people continue to tell him he needs. They'll come visit the plant, and then something else will be revealed. And then it's more money, more bribes. So when you talked about the politics and the things that really inhibit growth and progress and innovation, to me, it seems to be primarily because of the politics and some of the political randomness. So how was that experience for you?
I would say I was kind of fortunate because the company I worked for at the time had some good political, um, I would say, backing.
Mm-hmm.
and connection. So what would have taken a few years took us few months. But
Mm.
Very good. So another thing that we didn't mention. So Bola and I, we started a company called Profax.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea behind Profax was, we would start off as just kind of like a LinkedIn, where people would volunteer their own information. But then when you wanted to get hired, the employers, or if you were looking to put your information, like for example, you're trying to go to school in the U.S., how they have the West African, the one that you just talked about, WIAC,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that we were trying to work with them as well to get information over. So the idea was we would verify the information. So if you have a verified profile, you could then say, okay, check out my profile on, Profax.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I remember part of that's trying to start off was just basically doing what WIAC does, which is essentially going to the various different schools and trying to see if you can get like a certified transcript and that sort of thing. And that was a hassle as well. But I mention this to say, because obviously you work with data, and that was the biggest reason for us to try to do that, was to try to collect data. The way I understand things, there's a ton of things that's at issue, but part of, any kind of developing countries need, I think, is proper record keeping and documentation, because for multiple reasons. Obviously you can, if you know exactly what to do, you can build institutional knowledge and all that sort of thing. So that's why I think data is absolutely critical. And having managed the database of teachers, and I know that at some point they were also trying to do like this identity management, at least in Lagos.
yes, the NIM, National Identity Management Council.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm curious as to your opinions on how that's proceeding, and how, not just the political issues, but also maybe some technological, obstacles towards building the kind of database that is going to help to facilitate interactions between different people, different organizations, and things like that.
I think the challenge is that we wanna collect data in a big bang methodology. It's 200 million people. My approach will be start with Lagos, then go to Kano, and then do Port Harcourt. Because when you do one state, you have lessons learned, and then you can correct, and then go on to another state. When you want to do it in as a national project, it doesn't work. And then at a point, people feel overwhelmed. They feel like there's no success, and then we drop it halfway. The NIMC is a great initiative. It's supposed to be like our Social Security here in the US. I have my own card, but I would say the most current database we have in Nigeria is the BVN, and then from the telcos, the MTN.
What is the BVN?
BVN is the beneficiary verification number. Bank
Okay.
Pension
number. No, bank verification number. So what happened in the early 2000s is that you now have to, before your account is verified, you now have to go and do biometrics. So you take your thumbprints, and then you put in your information, and then they're able to link all of your bank accounts. So even if you have 200 bank accounts in Nigeria, all of them are now seen with one connecting. So everyone has that BVN number. And that was a way to kind of eliminate fraud, because when we say Dr. EC, we know how much you have in your total account. And then we realized that some people didn't show up to identify with an account, because people were opening accounts with their driver's name, with their maid's name, and all of that. So now your maid has to show up to identify herself as the owner of the account. And then you don't want your maid, because if your maid goes in and puts her thumbprint, that money is hers.
Yeah.
What is that? So a lot of money was now left idle in the banks.
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean that was a great move, and I think that's why now in the U.S. I know I have friends who have come visiting. When they just ask them here from Nigeria, do you have any debit card from Nigeria? And they take it as a form of identification. Because I think Nigeria is the only country whose banking details is authenticated by biometrics. Even in the US, you don't have biometrics in your bank.
No,
Right,
no,
right,
no.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays, I would imagine it would just be your phones because everybody is now using eyelids and their fingerprints to open their phones and that sort of thing.
Uh,
But yeah, I remember when that was started because that was one of the ideas that we actually also had. But yeah, it's interesting how that
Quickly picked
movement,
up.
yeah,
Yeah.
is happening.
Yeah.
but
So what
by
was
then,
so I was gonna say, because I'm really interested in getting into the contents of your book, and to me, I think when you have the background in the venture space, which you have coupled with IT, coupled with the government, you're now starting to see how solutions can come together from different angles. So I guess what are you thinking could be aside from the politics which you mentioned earlier, and also sort of taking um, a bite-sized approach to solving issues, which I think could be applied in general to all of life. So I am interested to also hear about the lessons that you've pulled from your history and how you've applied it to other aspects of your life. But speaking of Nigeria, though, I guess I'm just curious, when you think about moving forward, what are some of the um, infrastructure or the solutions that could be driven from your experience that perhaps is not currently being explored? I think you mentioned something around what was it? The
mobile wallet.
yeah, the payments earlier.
Mhm.
But I feel like a lot of IT or technology or venture um, horsepower is currently being dedicated to that. I don't know if it's been solved, but when I was studying the venture space, it just seems as if there were lots of solutions around payments. And I just wonder, it seems to me as if there are lots of other things that could be addressed. So I'm not sure if it's a lack of infrastructure that's an issue. Maybe it's just because the payment, because of BVM, there's already so much infrastructure built. So it's like we might as well all pile onto here. But I guess I'm just curious, like, what other major areas need to be addressed, and what would be your ideas as to how to go about resolving them?
Yeah, there's many things that can be done. Waste. There's a lot
Mm,
of technologies around convert. We have waste on the streets. We shouldn't. The waste should be collected and turned to energy.
mm,
And that's technology that's readily available. The challenge is that if we convert it to energy and then there's now light everywhere, what happens to the generators and importers of the generator? So that's a topic for another day. But
mm,
waste is an area where I see there's going to be like ripple economic impact.
mm,
Once there's light, the country would not be the same. Like people, Nigerians are generally very innovative. See how we've survived in so much torture. How much more when the basic infrastructure is provided, such as light?
mm.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
been a huge technology boom. So we have in Lagos, that's what we call the Yaba Valley, just like we have the Silicon Valley. It's a
Mhm.
technology valley in Yaba. Yaba is in Lagos, and that's where we have. There's a tech school called Andela, and when Facebook came to Nigeria a few years ago, that was where he visited. I know that software skills are being outsourced to Microsoft, IBM, and all of those guys from Andela. So we're
Yeah.
making, yes.
Oh,
Mhm.
cool. So then, yeah, how did you then come about where you are now, your current space, and how did you decide to write a book, and what was that process?
Yeah. So at Accenture, they started this. initiative called Women in Cloud. Apparently, the woman who wrote my forward is Annette Ripper. She used to be, so in 2018, she used to head all of technology in North America. And we were at this conference where the AWS conference in December of 2018, and she didn't see a lot of women at the conference from Accenture. And she was like, oh, she didn't like that. We needed to do something about it. And that was where it all started. So a lady at my practice at Accenture started the initiative called AWS Women in Cloud. And it was just to see more women um, get AWS certified and work with AWS Cloud. So I joined, and they were looking for ambassadors. So I joined the team, and very shortly they made me to lead the community engagement, because I was very active in the community, going out to identify organizations that we could partner with. So I was doing quite a bit in the community, and then they made me the head of the community engagements part of that initiative. So within that, I've worked with Girls Who Code, Black Girls Code, there's the Youth for Change, just several organizations like that, teaching girls how to code, bringing them into the Atlanta Innovation Hub, just to give them exposure and to see that there are women working in technology at Accenture, to give them inspiration. And then I still teach them how to code on Amazon Cloud. We build a few things with Amazon Cloud. So while I was doing that, I got an email saying, you see, we're doing the series on Women in Cloud, and we would like to hear your story. And I'm like, okay. So this was in 2019, like July. And then this scheduled an interview with a writer at Accenture. And we had a 1 hour session where I talked about my story real briefly. And in October of 2019, they published a blog post, and it was out of Africa and into the cloud. I was like, oh my God. And I read the blog post. I didn't even believe it was me. But I think that was the starting point, because I got a lot of feedback, and over 500.
What do you mean it was you? What was it about the blog that made you?
Yeah, so everything we talked about, how I read computer, and then I got doctorate, and then I'm at Accenture, and what I do at Accenture. So that was it was just a short blog post, what I do at Accenture. But the blog post was just to highlight women in cloud. So
Gotcha.
they've been doing series, and then they just said they wanted to hear my story as well. I remember that conversation with the writer when I told him I went to college in Nigeria. He said, sorry, what did you say? I said, I read computer engineering in Nigeria. I was like, really? So he didn't even know. But it brought a lot of perspective, because they went and did their own research. And then when I read the article, they mentioned Yaba Valley. They mentioned that there's 230 something university. So they did their own research, and the blog post was really good. So it was really good. So I got a lot of feedback. People within Accenture reached out to me and said, oh my God, that's an amazing story. And it was just maybe 400, 500 words or 1,000 words maybe. It was a short blog post. But the feedback was great. And a lot of people told me, if you wrote a book, I'll buy it. If you wrote a book, I'll buy it. If you wrote a book, I'll buy it. So I was like, okay, let's do it.
What was about your story that got people so fascinated? Was it you being a woman? Was it the fact that you're a Nigerian woman? Was it your passion for technology? Like what, or just something amazing about your passion for all of it? Like what was it that you think stood out to people?
So first of all, they couldn't make this correlation between a Nigerian woman and teaching American kids. I think it was interesting to understand the correlation between those two independent variables.
Well, that's an interesting concept because you're saying a lot of times it's the other way around, right?
Around.
It's Americans who are going to Africa teaching African children about whatever the latest thing is. So it's now the reverse that's happening, which then showed things in a different light.
Correct, correct. And
Mhm.
it wasn't just that I was teaching black kids, I was just teaching girls, like all girls,
Yeah.
and I just really wanted to, my motivation, I guess, was to see more women on the table, on the project teams. I've been at project teams where I'm the only woman, and I don't like it. I whatever I have to do to make make a difference, I will do it. I have two daughters, and if what I'm doing is gonna help, so that when they get into corporate America or into corporate business world, they would also see more women at the table.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So if I'm watching this, I like what I'm hearing, and I also have two daughters, and I'm like, I know I want them to get into this. Tell me why I should buy the book and what my daughters would get from it.
Okay, so you should buy the book because, one, we all have fears, and as a girl, I was afraid. I remember my first year in college, I was afraid because on the corridor, they're all boys. And even in the workplace, they're all guys. So I identified all of those fears, and fears that people don't talk about. I talked about it. So fear of the unknown, fear of non-acceptance, and fear of failure. Those are three.
Mm.
Those are three fears that limit us as girls to get into technology. So I spoke about them and how I felt them and how I overcame them. So I think that's something every girl needs to read and see.
Awesome. It's so interesting. I appreciate that you answered the question that way because I wanted to ask you specifically about the fear because one of the questions that you answered from our pre-interview questions is the hardest part about starting business or living for yourself, and you said seeing the end was the hardest part, the fear of the unknown, fear of non-acceptance, and a big part of what we do at at
Some days
some
today.
things today. I'm just thinking about what I want to ask you. But a big part of what we do is, talking about those fears, being real, being open and honest and everything. And so that's deep because a lot of times people need to know that they're not alone, that other
Right.
people share those fears as well, so that it's okay to keep, like, because a lot of times people will see someone like you and think, what, they've never had a fear in their lives. And
Correct.
so if you can, see somebody else who's made it and had those fears is very important. So can you tell us a little bit about those fears and what you did to overcome them?
Yeah. So the fear of failure, I'll just speak around that. The reason why I didn't get into architecture, like the structural architecture, was because I I didn't make enough grades to get in. So
Mm.
we feel this fear of failure from failures of the past. So
Mm.
I want every girl to know that even though you had failed in the past, the current situation you're in is completely different. So analyze the fears as independent issues or independent situations and deal with it. So we carry on past fears and then we bring it into our present life and then we keep moving along with it and it prevents us from living our best life. So my
Mm.
advice is to drop whatever had happened and face it now. And then failure in itself is not a bad thing. Look at me. I would have been a terrible structural engineer Don't you think so?
You don't know that. How do you know that?
With all of, okay, look at with COVID-19, nobody's building no buildings, but everyone is but everyone right now is on the computer. Everyone is moving to cloud. So I'm having a great time of my life. So yeah. So
You can work from anywhere. You could be traveling.
correct, living a great life. So it wasn't failure. It's my point. So
Yeah.
failure isn't always
Redirection.
correct. Sometimes failure is just a way of redirecting you to where you're meant to be. So take it as that and move on. It's just an event. It's just an event and you move on. Correct.
Yeah.
And great. Is this something that you've always known, or did you have to like grow and mature to this space? And kind of talk about that within the context of writing a book, because, there's some things that maybe and some fears that you feel like you've conquered, but not everyone can, or not everyone feels comfortable jumping into the process of writing a book. That's very unfamiliar. So how did that fear show up during the writing process, and how did you sort of overcome it?
Okay. So because somewhere in my mind, I feel like I'm an achiever. Starting off was great. I'm like, okay, I'm going to write this book, because when I meet with these girls and I talk with them an hour or two, I leave them. But I want to be able to leave them with with something that they can go back to. You see what I mean? So all of that sounded nice and fancy. And then I started. But it was maybe like chapter 3. I was like, no, this is crap. This is not going to work out. But I had an accountability partner because I had registered in a self-publishing school that walked me through the process of self-publishing. And everyone is assigned a partner. Everyone is assigned a coach. So they hold you accountable through the process. So there was no way to back off. They're like, no, you're on course. Don't. So they always taught us, don't look back. When you're writing, don't go back. You're done with chapter 1. Don't go back yet. Finish the entire book. And it's interesting how it also relates to life itself. My coach will always say, you finish the book. When you finish the book, then you hand it over to an editor who now goes through the correlation, how the flow works, and then the punctuation and all of that. Because if you keep looking back, you're going to edit, clean, correct, and you're never going to finish.
You're never going to move forward. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. So that was how I finished. In 60 days, I was done writing. And then 30 days for the editor to do it. Right? And I spoke my book. That's another thing. I didn't write my book like write. I spoke it. I used Google Assistant, and it was super easy because it translates speech to text. And I blocked out an hour every day on my calendar, like it was on my calendar writing.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. All these things, because I think there are a lot of people who probably want to get to writing, and I think a couple of things. One is procrastination is real. Everybody's like, it's in their heads. It's like, oh my God, all the work that I have to do to get this done. But like what you are describing, not only in having somebody there as an accountability partner, because then you have to do something. And that's one of the things that people don't like. If you don't have anyone there pushing you, you probably don't do anything. But also the idea of you could just speak it, like you can just talk it. Because what's in your head? In your mind.
It's like you're telling your story, because everyone's life happened to you the way it happened to bless someone else, to be a message to someone else, to inspire someone else who is going through what you've been through. So it's a message, right? And then the same way you're just telling your story, to your husband or your wife or to your friend, it's the same way you're just going to be talking to Google Assistant. You see what I mean? And you just talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah.
And then you said the process of writing then sort of relates to life. So how did that reveal itself, and how have you been pulling from that process to all your future aspirations now?
So I think really the writing process allowed me the opportunity to to look deep. Even these fears I spoke about, I didn't know. I didn't know that. I knew that I had fears, but I didn't know it the way I know now. But
Mm,
writing it allowed me to go real deep and find out what were the real issues. You know,
mm,
and I'm like,
mhm,
oh my God, so that was it. Oh, so that was it. This was it. So it's it's been like therapy for me as well. And yeah,
mm.
and so it's a healing process for everyone, so it's going to help you to heal, and it'll help you also apply those principles that you've lived by, to document your principles that you've actually lived by, so that you
Mm.
continue where you had successes, and you take them and you move them forward. And then the principle of not going back to your writing, until you finish. That's actually a lie, because if you keep looking back, you're not gonna make any progress in life
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. A lot of times people say, we were just talking about this today, how do you live in the moment, when you are trying to plan for the future? And, we were debating, well, if you're living in the moment, then are you always going to be unprepared for the future? Because there's got to be some sort of planning. But writing is something that does force you to stay in the moment. And it sounds like what you're saying is you're definitely not looking back. But then are you still preoccupied with the future? Or how do you force yourself to occupy that present moment, knowing that you want a cohesive book, which requires some sort of planning? How does that all translate?
And then with COVID, you can imagine I was home with my daughters, trying
Yeah.
trying to homeschool. Just crazy, but definitely some level of planning. So, like I said, I put it on my calendar. It was on my set an alarm would go off at 7 a.m. every day, and it went off like that for 90 days. So I planned 90
Mm.
days in future, for to ensure that it got done. Um, and then also, I mean, the only thing you want to learn from your past is just the things that have worked for you. You should be able to document what has worked for you, because
Mm.
it will come handy as well in the future. And then in the present, I would say it's just to be a blessing to people, be kind to people that you come across, be kind to yourself as well, because you've done an amazing, incredible job to get to this point. Be
Mm.
kind to yourself, be easy on
So do you
yourself.
believe, you feel like everybody has done an amazing job and everybody needs some sort of kindness? Is that your philosophy? Because I think a lot of people beat up on themselves. A lot of people cannot see what they've done. A lot of people hold on to the fear. So how do you, and maybe you address in this in the book, how do you sort of speak to in the intrinsic value that everyone has, and the fact that you are is reason enough for you to celebrate? Like, how do you bring that into people's full understanding?
Oh, people, I would say I know for sure that everyone has done something great. There's just the process of sitting still and identifying it. Like when I wrote my book, it really allowed me to see my journey, and to see where I have helped people, and how I am helping people, and how I'm being kind, and how I mean, it was at this point I had to sit down to count how many girls I had taught to code. I didn't know. I was just doing it. You know how you're just busy moving on and on and on. But when I saw the number, it really hit me. I was like, okay, I'm doing good. You know, I'm really doing something good. So we all just need to, even in the present, just pause and take stock of where we've been good. Nobody's perfect, but definitely if you stop and take stock, you will find out where you've been good.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I know that you probably didn't see yourself here when you started off in you know, architectural school.
I was gonna say, you mean on some days today?
No, no, no. When you started off in architectural school, you didn't see
She
yourself
didn't go
as
to architecture school.
I know. On
Okay.
her
On her
journey
journey. Okay.
to go to architectural school, obviously she was redirected,
Yes.
and now she went into coding, and that's so she never saw herself here.
Here.
And now being an author,
Yes.
and so you know this is kind of unexpected, but you landed where you were supposed to be. Where now are you? Do you see yourself? Do you have a vision? Whether or not you know you're redirected further, but do you have a vision for what you want to do now that you started writing this book and how you want to impact the world?
So yeah, I've looked at the reviews of my book and I'm like, oh my God, I have almost 60 reviews um in a lot in what 3 weeks. And everyone is just saying, oh, how you've inspired me. The book has been inspiring. Now I'm going to take that certification. I have someone say, I've been planning to take certification for 10 years. Now I'm going to take it. Now I've been afraid. All of these fears you mentioned, I've been afraid. And now I know that, in fact, a friend of mine said, no, you see, stop it. You've never been afraid. When we were in college, you were taking classes in college, you were going to NIT, just stop it. You've never been afraid. Leave fear for people like us that do. Like, no, we all have fears. Yeah. So I think where I see myself going, so like this summer, my calendar is really booked. A lot of organizations, women groups, girls group, want me to come and speak on the issues in my book. So I really see myself doing that long term, inspiring and encouraging girls and women across the globe.
That's
Awesome.
great. That's great. Yeah. It looks like you're doing an amazing job. Congrats on the book and the fact that you got Annette Ripper. And what is her title at Accenture?
Yeah, so right now she's the global chief executive of Accenture Strategy and Consulting.
Yeah.
And I remember I had fears reaching out to her to write a book. I just sent an email. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you just sent her an email and said, would you be interested in writing my foreword? Does she know you?
No.
Wow.
No. I mean, we've been on a couple of emails. She sent me messages, like just email about the work I'm doing with girls. So to that extent, you know what I mean? But it's not like we've met physically before. We haven't. Yeah. So I wrote the email, and it took her a while to respond. And you can imagine because of COVID, and then Accenture was going through a reorg. It was part of that reorg that made her on the global. Like I said, she used to be North American lead for technology, but now she's the group chief executive of Accenture Strategy. So they were in the middle of the reorg, and then COVID and having to do with all of that. So it took her a while to respond. Well, she eventually did, and she was like, "Okay, send me the manuscript." I signed it over, and then she read it, and she was like, "Yes, I'll do it. This is fantastic."
Wow.
And that's how life is. You just have to keep pushing and looking forward. And even if she said no, right, I'll still publish my book. You see what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But I'm very glad she did.
What made you decide? Because so one of the books that I want to read, and we have books that we're constantly reading, but one of the books that I want to read is The Third Door. And it's the concept of, you know, if you're going to get anywhere, if you're going to be doing great things with your life or in general, you know, some people are going to follow. So it's kind of like if you're trying to get into a club, a lot of people will wait in line trying to get into a club. You'll line up and you may be there for 2-3 hours. You may get in, you may not, but you're there with the regular people, right? So that's one way of trying to get in. Another way is as a VIP, right? Someone the owner of the club. Someone thinks maybe you're cute, whatever it is, you're cute, so you get to skip the line or whatever. But the point is, there's a second door that's sort of VIP for very special, important people, and then there's a third door where you don't know anyone, but it's the door where you work. You walk around, you skip the line, you don't know anyone, and you go through the back kitchen, or you climb through the window, just the randomness of you still trying to get in, but now it's going to take some sort of creative energy. And the concept is that a lot of times people who've had massive success, they're general people who, for the most part, are going to wait in line, and that's what 90% of people are doing to access to do whatever they do. Sometimes they eventually just run out of time. The club closes and you can't get in. And if you just happen to not be born into influence, be of wealth, or connected to people in power, you may not have access to the second door. But everyone can be creative. Everyone can shoot up an email to Annette Rippert and say, will you write my book, and just see, she's going to say yes or no. To me, that's an example of the third door, because number one, you didn't know her. Most people have said, I'm not going to randomly email someone I don't know to write something. So how did you decide, how did you get over that? Because that in and of itself to me would present some sort of fear or roadblock. Right. So how did you decide to push through? And for people who don't know, at Accenture, I would think Annette is probably like an equivalent of maybe, something like trying to write to like an executive at Apple, like a Steve Jobs or someone within the executive ranks, right? Right. While you're just, someone that, either works there but is unknown to them. So how did you push through and decide, I'm just going to ask her and we'll see what she says?
Yeah, I asked, before Annette, I asked Julie Sweet. Julie Sweet is the CEO of Accenture.
Wow.
So I reached out.
So so your friend was right. You've never had fear.
No.
Your friend was right then. This is what you do. You're like, I just shoot emails off. Who cares?
When the book was published and I announced it on LinkedIn, that day I got an invite from Julie Sweet to join my network.
Wow.
I don't know why she didn't respond. She was busy, but she definitely has put the dots together that this was that random email, okay? And she's gone ahead and she's published her book. Well, I don't know, but I would say I've never been the one to wait in line. I didn't wait in line in college for that one computer. I had to figure out how to. I'm like, there's more to this stuff, right? So yeah, I'm never gonna wait. I don't believe in VIP status, but I know that I'm gonna get what I want. For sure. Yeah, I'm gonna get whatever it takes. In a good sense of the word. I'm gonna go for it, and I'm gonna get what I want.
That's great. That's great. Well, I love it. Go ahead.
So the last question I have, I don't know if you have any more, but I know that you are an identical twin. Well,
can you put the volume on your mic up? It seems to be low. I don't know if it's your mic that's moving. But go ahead.
But I know you're an identical twin, so I wonder, what is your soulmate, your identical twin sister is, saying and doing, and thinking about your book writing and your success. Are you guys also identical in personality too?
Spirit.
I don't know. A lot of people say we have same mannerism, so you be the judge of that. But she's currently doing her PhD in business. She read petroleum engineering while I was in computer engineering. She's doing, but she's an entrepreneur. She never worked for anyone, so she does her own business. So she's currently doing her PhD in University of Aberdeen in the UK. And yeah, she's super excited about my book. I mentioned her name a couple of times as someone that how I overcome fears as well. I talked about having a body that you can always talk to. So she just being part of my life, I guess, made a few things easier because there's someone that I can say anything and everything to and not feel any form of condemnation. So yeah, she's been a great source of support. Right now, the book is #1 bestseller in the UK, and that's definitely her. She's the one calling it and doing it, just making sure she gets
Wait,
the
you
book
said the
out.
book is the #1 bestseller in the UK.
In the UK right now. In fact, I was just checking the charts. Yeah,
That's
screenshot,
amazing.
screenshot #1. Yeah, so she's talking to a lot of promoters, her friends, the university, everywhere like that. So yeah, it's great to always have at least one person, and she's been a great part of my life.
Oh, that's
Awesome.
great.
That's great.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, this is it's been great. I think we talk about on some days today about overcoming fear and not letting anything hold you back. And sometimes, it's a lot of times it's within the context of maybe entrepreneurship, travel, just do you. And sometimes it's difficult to sort of apply it to just day-to-day life. And I think what you've done and shown is that you can still continue to push and break through boundaries and access your goals through the third door, or just live boldly just by doing what is in your heart, and you could still choose the traditional route. You're going to work within corporate America and do what you do, but you're still living boldly in many ways. So I think you're really just a great testament to not having to necessarily turn your life upside down to live boldly. There's so many ways that you can do it. And I think this was an amazing example of that. So I've been very inspired by your story. Thank you so much for coming on.
And if you ever want to go private again or your own business, you have some ideas about doing work in Nigeria, please look us up again. I'm interested.
Definitely. I'll reach out.
Yes. So once again, the name of the book is Out of Africa and Into the Cloud. Out of Africa Into the Cloud.
Girls Can Code Too.
Yes,
Girls Can Code Too. Absolutely. So look it up. We'll put a picture of the book up for everybody to go and purchase.
And it's on Amazon, yes?
Yes, it is.
It is. Okay.
Yeah, it's on everywhere. So yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And have a great rest of the day.
Oh, we didn't do
where can people find you if they're looking outside of getting the book?
Like your social media and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure you're going to put it up, but I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram. I'd love to connect with you. You can send me an email. I always like to hear from my readers. contact@ecai.guru. So you can always reach me. I'm excited to speak with you. Yes.
That's amazing. Thank you, Dr. Issy.
Yes. Are we going to do our tagline?
Oh, yeah.
So before we do our tagline, we want to prepare you. There is some colorful language. But
well, thank you once again, everyone, for listening to Someday is Today, where
we invite you to live your life like it's a fucking vacation.
Yeah, do it. All right. Well, thanks, Issy. Have a good one. We enjoyed this.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.